And then the next day they're like, yeah, I don't think we're performing tomorrow. We're just performing the fourth day, not the third and the fourth. So the second day I was like, well, looks like it's fast food
Gotcha.
in
Whoopsie.
Vegas. Right?
Yep.
Ah.
Looks like it's ramen and water tonight. Like,
Yeah, hold the ramen, and it's just water.
What's up, everybody?
my name is Anthony Irvin.
You beat yourself?
Yeah,
okay.
CV myself.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm Jim Green. Don't even need a hit of traffic light.
Okay, good.
Welcome to
One set.
Yeah, so I try to eat at the appropriate time, and I feel like I talked about this in one of like the very first episodes we did, where I digest my lunch, I do the bathroom thing, I shower so that when I'm at work, I'm clean, right? Yeah, I did all that. I felt fine. I was 30 minutes into my first class, and well, I should say I was like 10 minutes into my first class, and I'm like, no, 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 just no, just no, no.
Oh no.
So, my first class is like 5 to 8 year olds. Okay, there were 10 of them today. I have two assistants that are like 10 years old. Like they take a lot of dance classes. So, in a pinch, if what happened today happened, I could be like, hey. Because it's usually the first half of the class is like we stretch, we warm up, we make sure we're good. The second half of the class is we practice skill sets and everything. So I got to 4:25-ish, and I was like, all right, if there's any reason that I'm not going to make it to 5 o'clock, which is like where my classes change over, I have to go now, right? So I was like, I just got to go. So I went and immediately irritated just because, like I said, no. Because after that, I mean, I'm teaching for another. Well, after that point, I have another 5 hours before I'm done teaching.
Jeez.
So, I mean, I'm sure you can appreciate, like, if you're at the gym, which, you know, you've taken pre-workout before, and you've gone into a gym and then been like, oh, I got to take a pre-workout real quick. It definitely like pulls the vibe down a little bit because you don't feel like fresh while you're working, right?
Right.
So yeah, that happened, and it's one of those things. Like when you're at work and you have to do that thing. Is your bathroom like near you, or do you have to go somewhere for it?
It is on the other side of the building, but it's not like too far. But I've never had like a point where it's like, oh crap, I don't think I'm gonna make it. But it's to the point sometimes where it's like, okay, I mean, I'm just glad that with my job, I can, freely, if I need to go to the bathroom, I can go to the bathroom.
Sure.
Like whenever I want to.
Yeah.
And, I feel bad for like people like Jen because she can't, because I mean she works with kids, so she just can't up and leave 10 kids in a classroom, or they'll have bathrooms in their classroom, but she can't just up and go to the bathroom and close a door and leave 10 kids just doing whatever. So she usually has to either have somebody cover her while she's doing that, or do the whole, hey, you need to come in here while I do this or that. So I can only imagine if like you have a restriction of like, okay, well, you have to hold it while you're like thinking like, no, I got to go now, but then you can't go. I think that's even worse when you can't go, or you can't go, but you have to go, but you're not able to go at that point. I think that's the worst feeling.
Well, yeah. So as of September was when I was first given assistance for that first class, and like, thank God, because I honestly don't think I ever ran into that in my because like I usually flush myself out, no pun intended. Like close enough to when my first class is, and for that reason, they're my youngest kids, so I can't just like walk away from them, right?
Right.
Yeah. So my second class, they're like 9 to 13-year-olds and pretty well behaved. I do have one newer girl in there that I think she would kind of just do whatever. But I also did just learn tonight that her parents don't live together. So that, I mean, I'm like, okay, so that makes sense. So my third class, they're like 8th to 11th grade, minus the one girl is like 10, but she's super good and like really polite. So if I said, all right, everyone on the mat, stretch, nothing upside down, no practicing, I would trust it and be able to step out.
Right.
And my 4th and 5th class are honestly like that too. And usually I try to go at the start of a class, so I'm not dipping out in the middle. But I knew once I got the kids off from stretching and had them line up to start practicing cross mat, I'd be screwed because I can't walk away when they're practicing all that stuff, and I can't say, all right, class, everyone sit back down, because they're already like actively working. They wouldn't be able to contain themselves. But like I said, fortunately, I have assistance in that first class that I was able to dip out for the second. Now, the next fun thing is, I had like not this one because I broke a sweat. In my last class, I started dancing a little bit more because I felt like okay, but I had my sleeves rolled up. I wear joggers so that I can pull, as you've seen me wear my joggers, where I have them hiked up, to my upper
the shin,
at the shin, right under the knee. Yeah. So I started sweating, but it was like when you get the cold sweats. Like my body feels cold, but I'm clammy. So then I'm like, God, what is this? I'm pulling, like, I'm lowering the cuff at the bottom of the jogger so that they look like just jogger pants, and I'm pulling my sleeves like this.
Right.
I'm like, I'd rather just be warm sweaty than cold sweaty. But then I was but then I'd like intermittently be like, okay, I'm dying. I pull up my sleeves. I left my pants alone for the rest of the night. But then I started looking at my arms, and they were like red. And I texted Cheyenne right before my last class and told her, I was like, yeah, my arms, and I noticed that my shins were red. She was like, you sound sick. Like, she's like, that sounds like a fever rash. Yeah, I was like, I'm breaking out. I'm like breaking out into something. It doesn't feel right. She's like, you haven't slept right. Your stomach hit you in your first class, and it's still not right. You might be sick. I'm like,
whoopsie.
I hate being sick, man. Hate it. And I think I can say that because I rarely get sick. So when I do, I'm like, oh, this is super inconvenient, right?
Right. And it always comes at the perfect time, right?
Yeah, and my job, I have to be like fairly active. It's not like a desk job where I can just like muscle through it. But yeah, I the end of the night I felt okay, but like the first hour and a half, I was just like, this sucks, man. This sucks. So yeah. gonna get that good rest hopefully tonight. Looking forward to that.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of things that suck, let me tell you about this show that I had this past weekend. So I'm not going to name and even if we air this.
I saw that you were promoting it, but I didn't remember you like really talking about it.
Yeah, because at first I again wasn't sure if I was going to play it because of the weather that day, because I was supposed to play there last month and it was raining and the area was just wet and not stable for any type of music.
Oh, that was that venue. Because I remember seeing the graphic. I remember seeing the graphic previously, and I was like, "Oh, look, Anthony's going back there again." But now that you say it, I remember you telling me about that show where you're like, "Yeah, sorry, it's not worth it to put my equipment outside while it's raining." So, like,
I was like, "F this, I'm not playing." And they were like, "Well, yeah, we I just want to let you know the other guys agree with your decision." I'm like, "I didn't give if you agreed or not. I'm not playing." Because again, and I'm not saying that because I mean, even if this airs or not, I'm not going to say the venue because I don't want to put anybody on blast. But for this, I wasn't necessarily getting paid. I was just getting paid in tips. So there's, you know, and I'm sure. I mean, I'm not sure if that usually happens in the dance community too much. If you don't really get paid, you get paid. You don't get paid tips, but like if there's like you get paid in exposure, if that's a thing in the dance community as well.
So, so it's more so if you're teaching like a benefit class, right? Where it's kind of like, hey, okay, I'm doing this for free, like for charity or something like that. Like, I know I did. Right. I taught like a hurricane relief fund once, and I was like, I don't expect anything. I think the studio just gave me like a $20 gift card. I was like, hey, that's fine. I was really just doing this because like the studio charged the dancers that came in, but they donated the money, and I was like, that makes the studio look good. It makes, you know, the instructor look like, hey, he's not just a whoopsie and just wants to get paid all the time.
Right.
And it looks good if the kids see that, right? Because it will hopefully down the line promote them to have a similar mentality. Sorry for cutting you off, but I think, yeah.
No. But yeah, I wasn't sure if that was like a thing in like the dance community. That's like, oh, it's like I'm not getting paid, but it's like an exposure thing. Like that's kind of pretty typical sometimes in the music community that you know, you won't get paid, but promoters like, well, we can't pay you, but you're getting all these people to look at you, so it's free promotion. Like, yeah, sure, but I'd rather be getting paid. But I knew the promoter for this, and it was very close to where I work. So I'm like, all right, well, maybe I can get some people from my work to come out and see me play, because they're always asking me where I'm playing and they would like to see me play. I played our anniversary thing a couple months back, so a lot of my employees got to see me play. Right. So, and I got into this thing very late last year, so I'm like, all right, next year I want to try to see if I can play it. So the gig started out fine. I knew I was going to be dealing with some cold weather, no matter what. So I'm getting in there. Thankfully, everything was dry. I'm like, all right, there's no rain today. It's just cloudy, but I know it's going to be cold. But everything was dry around my area. So I'm like, all right, step one, good. So I'm trying to set up and everything. The first hour and a half, it was cold, but it was bearable. And, you know, that day it was windy. So I was playing inside the tent. I'm not sure if you've seen the location, but there's a tent and then the outdoor portion of it. And I was playing inside the tent, but the tent is just enclosed by tarps. So the tarps are not wired down. So they're just flapping around if the wind is like gusting. So again, the wind was gusting that day, so I'm in between two tarps on the sides and then a tarp in the back. So every once in a while, when a big wind gust would come, it would be like, whoosh, whoosh, like all over the place. And I'm like, all right, well, and every once in a while, I'm holding my mic, making sure that like something doesn't get tipped and then a mic falls or this or that. But again, the first like hour and a half, it was manageable. I did my first, hour and 15, got that down, and I'm like, all right, that was manageable. I knew I couldn't, like, it was definitely hard. My fingers were like a little cold because when I was playing, my solos, it was kind of hard to get into a rhythm because, you're trying to adapt to the cold. And usually with that, I try not to warm myself up 100% because then you have to adapt to the cold again. So I try to stick out in the cold to adapt my body to what environment I'm in. And so then I start my second set. I took about 15, 20, 25 minutes just to kind of, settle down. I got, a water, got a soft pretzel, went back, and I played for about another hour and a half. And it got to about 5 o'clock. Around 4:30, like it just started turning on, and I'm like, okay, it's cold. And it was just like, the wind was picking up, it's starting to get darker, and I'm just like, all right, I just need to do something to just get this thing over with. And so at 5 o'clock, and usually the last set, I try to be like, okay, I'll just try to play the rest of this because I don't want to have to take another break. I'll just kind of wing it and go the rest of the time. It was around 5 o'clock. I'm like, I have to take a break because I'm so freaking cold. Yeah. So I took a break, took a half-hour break because I'm like, I'll just play the last half hour. I was half tempted to say, hey, it's 5 o'clock. I only have one more hour to go. I was half tempted to say, hey, guys, I mean, it's way too cold out here for me to play. And
right.
I mean, in my head, I'm like, I'm not getting paid for this. So it's not like I'm losing out on anything. Now, sure. I got some tips for that day. So it wasn't a total bust, but not like I'm making $100 in tips. Yeah. But then I'm going up to get a hot chocolate because I'm like, all right, hot chocolate's going to it'll get the warmth back in me. Try to keep my body warm. Something. And I'll hold on to the cup so my hands aren't kind of, getting too cold. And the guy, said, hey, don't worry about paying for it. The hot chocolate's on us. Don't worry about it. So I said, okay, thanks. And he's like, and I've been, watching you. You're doing some great stuff up there. I'm like, oh, thanks, man. I appreciate it. So that after him saying that, I'm like, all right, I can't just be like, well, thanks. But by the way, I'm done. Like, I didn't want to be a total whoopsie. So sure. I'm like, all right. So I stood by. There was a little heater that was like next to me.
Right.
That they provided, but it wasn't really on me. It was just kind of, going into the tent to provide some warmth. But again, it was still freezing in there. And so I'm literally like at my shin level at the heater with a cup of hot chocolate, just trying to warm myself up and be like, okay, just get through this half hour. And we're done. Yeah. So that half hour was just like, all right, get through it. Try to play some, moderate stuff, nothing too crazy. Because at that point, I really couldn't do a lot of like soloing. I can still play chords and stuff, but like a lot of my technical work, my fingers weren't fast enough for it. So I'm just like,
you needed to keep it light because, yeah, sure.
Right. So I'm like, if I have a solo part, kind of keep it very basic. Don't try to, do what you normally do because all you're doing is just you're going to be missing strings. You're going to be like fudging up on some, little licks here and there. Not that anybody would really notice, but that would be something that I would be noticing. But sure. So I got done the gig, and I'm like, I instantly got home, took a hot shower.
Yeah,
I'm like, this is something I cannot do again.
Yeah,
because I was supposed to play there again next month, but I talked to my promoter and said I need to get this thing switched to the other venue because it was way too cold. And February is just as unpredictable as January is.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I can't risk to do that again. I'm lucky I did not get sick.
I tend to feel like February is colder than January most of the time.
And that's what Jen was telling me. She's like, I mean, February has been getting colder than January. So I mean, you can't like think that, oh well, maybe next month might be a little warmer. Like, no, it's probably going to be a little colder. So I mean, I can't risk that again. I was very lucky I didn't get sick, because I was literally in this and a hat. I had a long thermal sleeve underneath, and I think the worst thing I wore were jeans, but I can't wear sweatpants to a gig. But I was I was telling her that night, I'm like, I probably should have thought about wearing like long johns underneath the jeans, so that the coldness from the jeans wouldn't have hit my legs too much, because that night my legs were like, felt like I had like pins and needles for about a good little bit, because of the coldness of the jeans, like on my thighs and everything. So it was definitely, and I was telling a friend of mine that came over to watch me play, and I was saying, like, remember that one time, I was playing the block party with my old band, and we played the block party, and it was around October, and it was supposedly a really cold day. I said, this is the coldest gig I've ever had.
Yeah.
This tops that gig.
Yeah, I can't. I'm sure I've done like a couple of outdoor things. Yeah, I can recall one that I did that was outdoor and it rained, but it like I was under a pavilion, so it wasn't like bad. And I mean,
yeah,
I don't remember it being particularly cold. But I was in like a suit. We had like a Blues Brothers look going on with like fedoras and sunglasses.
mm-hmm.
But the rain was kind of creeping in from outside of the pavilion. So it was kind of like, this isn't like, it was easily, I want to say like maybe a mid-spring kind of day. So it wasn't cold, but it wasn't like, I've danced outside before where it's like sunny and nice and not super hot, and I'm like, yeah, that's better. Absolutely.
Right.
I've danced in like indoor venues where the AC was broken.
Oh jeez.
Yeah, I mean, arms just glistening with sweat, like before going on stage, and then dancing. And then this was when me and the one guy used to basket flip the other guy, like he'd flip real high in the air.
Yeah.
He jumped into our hands, and literally his shoes slipped in our hands because our hands were wet. He barely got the flip off the hands, but I mean, yeah.
Like Jerry curl wet.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Cool, man. So sounds like you had a fun time. Sounds like,
yeah. I mean, and I don't, if this comes into the episode, I'm fine with it. I mean, I had a good time. The people were great. The atmosphere is great. It's a very cool thing to have. It's just, I don't think as a musician I would play that part again. There's a couple different locations, and I'll be playing one of the other locations. But
nice.
The staff was great. The people were great. I had a couple great moments with the people that were attending, not necessarily me, but doing the activities of that venue, and it was a good time. Just not the proper temperature for it was just one of the unlucky days of playing a gig for the temperature wise. So life lesson learned.
Yeah, fun when those variables come into play, and you go into it thinking like, it's not that bad. It's like, I guess the whole me being not 100% like today was not great.
No. Yeah.
And then I mean, I've performed or even taught. Teaching with like minor injuries is very doable, irritating, but you can get through it, right? I mean,
right.
Especially if you're just hurt, like if you have like a strain. But I mean, I've I'm trying to think. After I got knee surgery, I think I started teaching a couple months after that. By that point, I was just excited to be back in teaching.
Yeah.
I obviously wasn't like doing all sorts of crazy stuff, but and I was just getting into teaching at the time, so I was obviously like developing like my teaching set. So the experience was kind of, the more you had, the better you got if you self-evaluated and whatnot.
Right.
But yeah, other than weather, yeah, here's a good one. And I'm sure you can attest to playing in tiny spaces, right? Where it's like,
yes,
I barely have room. I barely have room to like set my
Whoopsie.
Up, right?
Yeah. Where's the tiniest space that you performed at, and if you're not getting there already? So
that's exactly where I was headed.
Okay.
Oof, there are a couple, both in Philly, that like instantly come to mind. The one was actually outside of like Pat's and Gino's, like that corner.
Okay, yeah.
I'd done a backup gig, and me and my buddy had, it was like a 6 foot by 6 foot box.
Oh, jeez.
But the artist was standing front and center, so he and I, like overlapping behind her, was very like, we were basically like rubbing up on the artist just to get past her. Now, the thing about that stage was like maybe a foot off the ground, so we could step off if we had to. But
yeah,
everything about us being in sync and behind her meant you should stay on the stage, right?
Right.
And I think we performed 12 to 15 minutes, so it wasn't like an insanely like long set, but I've done shows in like Atlantic City where we just go to do her one like top song, and it's 5 minutes.
Yeah.
It's 5 minutes.
Right.
We go on, we do that song, and we're done. Right. Now, I do recall the weather being fairly nice. Like, it was a bright, sunny day in like May or June, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
We weren't dying in heat. It wasn't freezing. It wasn't raining, right? But the size of the stage just made it really hard for us to like look presentable. So it's kind of like,
yeah.
I mean, if the stage is going to be that big, why do you need the dancers behind you? But again, getting paid, so try not to complain. There is another bar we performed at, but this one's wild. It was like 10 years ago, but the stage again was like it was like 4 feet deep by 12 feet long.
Okay.
But there were instruments spread out on the stage, so it was just like the crossovers. We were like, absolutely not. Just stay in place the whole time, unless if there was
almost
like
you had a back line with you.
Yeah. Yeah, I've probably ran into the extra small stages maybe a few more times than like the big stages where it's like you've got plenty of room to do whatever you want, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I think the temperature for the outside gig definitely a variable. The size of your performance space, definitely a variable, right? Oh, here's a fun one. How about the number of people in the crowd? right? Because definitely have gone and done shows.
I can get to that too.
And the promoter didn't know how to do their job and promote, and like 5 people would show up.
Yeah, why would they want to promote? Why would they want to promote?
Yeah, so expecting it to be like a fairly big show. Now, this actually happened in Vegas where they didn't sell enough tickets for the 2 days that we were supposed to perform. So they canceled the one day and gave people a credit to the next day. But so with that, since there weren't many tickets sold, like I was in Vegas for maybe 4 days for that trip, and we only performed for the one night for 20 minutes. Size of the stage was fine, but we only got paid for the one show where we're thinking we're going to get paid for 2 shows. And I'm going out there thinking like, oh, I'll have some like extra spending money, like because I'm working 2 shows. And we find out like it was after the first day where I was already like, all right, I'm treating myself to breakfast and lunch and dinner, like kind of fancy and bougie. and then the next day they're like, yeah, I don't think we're performing tomorrow. We're just performing the 4th day, not the 3rd and the 4th. So the second day I was like, well, looks like it's fast food in Vegas. Right?
Yep. Looks like it's ramen and water tonight. Like,
yeah, hold the ramen, and it's just water.
Oh my god, yeah.
You can talk about the promoting and having.
Oh my god, I can definitely tell about so many things of like one. Expectations of a show being like, oh yeah, we have an in crowd, we'll want you guys to sell tickets, but we have an in crowd, and it's a place that is out of our little bubble, and we're like, well, we're getting exposure in another network, so we'll just take the gig, but then we're just playing for the bar, and we're just like, hey, we're getting paid, but it's like, cool, where are all the people you said that was going to come? And we get like pretty much gas money, and we're like, cool, because we drove about an hour or 2 to get here, and there was this one venue, and I was just talking about it I think with my wife within the last week or 2. We were playing up in Linden, New Jersey, and I think it was a Friday or Saturday night. And, we were just excited to play out of our network and play somewhere near New York. We're like, cool, this is something to kind of put on our resume. Like, yeah, we've been out of our network. We've played shows. And it's just this regular bar. I forget how we got linked up to it, but they must have either contacted us or we contacted them on the fact that we probably saw somebody else play there. And we're like, hey, let's try to get in. We got a show there. And we're expecting to probably play around like 10, 11 o'clock at this bar. We didn't play until 1 a.m. And literally just playing for the bar, like literally probably like 5 drunk dudes. And, we're just playing our butts off, but still it's like, we're out here at 1 o'clock in the morning, don't know where we are, but it's just this little dive bar. And we're just like, cool. All right, let's get the hell out of here. And, to bring back what you were saying about like small stages, there was this one venue that's actually within the Delco area that still exists today. I think they've upgraded their stage since when we used to play there, but it was I forget that, I don't really remember the dimensions, but we had to only keep it was not big enough for us to have our amps and ourselves on the stage. We basically used the stage to hold our amps and the drummer. And we just, I think we were at that point where we were doing the wireless guitars and everything. So we just put everybody else on the floor, and we just had everything else on the back line of the stage. Yeah. So it was insane, the fact that it was like that typical like music meme that goes around like, oh yeah, this is your stage, it's a fully fledged out house system with everything, and it's just literally like plyboard, like 3x4 stage thing with a so it's like, yeah, we have a whole back line and everything, and you're just literally looking at like a thing, like a square plyboard.
Seriously, the worst. That's pretty cool.
So
we were able to,
like, for both of us, we've been able to. No, sorry. Like, over the years, we've been able to know that, like, we know our worth with our, professions, with, you being a dancer, me being a musician. And, we've had our, crazy gigs where, we probably knew it was going to be a little shaky, but we're just doing it because, we wanted to get out and, have a gig. I know there's plenty of times I probably could have been like, I really don't need this, but I've never been that egotistic kind of guy. Like, I know I don't deserve to be here. I always feel, you got to play those, shitty gigs in order to really appreciate the good gigs that really get you that euphoria and dopamine hit. That's like, okay, this was what I needed, and I'm sure you can attest to the same thing. I mean, you've had some pretty crappy times where, like, I really don't feel like being here. I know we probably shouldn't be here, but hey, it's a learning experience, and the next time we get on a gig that's like really big, we're going to learn from this so that we know how to really appreciate bigger gigs.
Yeah, I had a teacher, like 15 years ago. I was at a convention, the one that I used to travel with. She said, if you're wanting to get into the the dance scene, like the professional dance scene, be ready for every one awesome job you get. You will get 15 not awesome jobs. So I think early on I had that expectation where it was like, all right, I'm if I'm going to get the stage experience and getting paid, unless if it's like a charity event, which I've done, even on the backup end, we've done charity, events and stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think that ratio is actually pretty dead on, because I can think of, like, sorry, I can think of probably like 5 or 6 shows where it was like a pretty large audience, and then I can think of like probably 100 shows that I did where it was like, this is, I mean,
absolutely,
it's like Chappelle said, it's like an above ground pool. I mean, it's a pool, but
it's a pool, but yeah. Yeah, man. I think both of these professions are something's like, you if you're not in it for the love of what you're doing, when you're in those positions, you would just be like, I hate this. But if you don't have a love for playing music or being a dancer, yeah, it sucks when you when your expectations of a gig don't pan out and you're not really, I'll go to a gig and I'm hoping for a decent crowd, but it's like, you're playing on an off night and you're not getting the crowd that you expect, and you're just playing for a couple people. And I'm sure you can attest to the same thing. You're expecting a big crowd, but there's not. But I've learned to just kind of take those as not only just like, practices or just learning from them, but, whoever's in the audience, because I have always kept in my mind, you never know who you're playing for.
Right.
Because there could be somebody out there that owns a radio station or knows somebody who knows somebody in the music business that's like, hey, I was just at this random bar and this guy was up there and I thought he was pretty cool and he was playing some original music. I think you should probably check him out. Or, same thing, I'm sure, there's people in the crowd that you never know who you're, really dancing for, that can be like, hey, I know this guy who knows that guy who knows this person and so on. And, hey, you certain things. So like, I never try to keep it as like, oh, well, I'm not going to take this thing serious because it's not what I expected. But I always try to play the same way that if I were playing for 2 people versus I would want to play the same way as if there was like 20 or 50 people. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I will say some of the events where there's only like, I played at this one bar in Florida, and like I walked in for the stage tech during the day, and I was like, oh wow, this has like an elevated stage. It wasn't huge, but I think it was. I'd say it was a manageable size stage, and it was elevated. So like that makes a world of difference. Like playing on the ground versus like you are higher up a little bit.
Yeah,
but
it looked
but
legit.
that bar literally had like maybe 10 people show up. I'm thinking, okay, I'm playing in Port St. Lucie, Florida, and I was like, okay, there's going to be a decent sized crowd, maybe even if it was only like 50 to 100 people in the bar. That is like, for the size of what the bar was, it would have looked packed. I just remembered, but yeah, 10 people. I was like, all right, and our set was 25 minutes for that one. So I mean, it was more so like I was just focused on like executing. I was thinking about like making sure that like my spacing was good with the, because the stage was not huge, but can't be like going crazy or anything. But yeah, I was just I had just recalled the one place in Jersey that I performed at probably a handful of times is called Adelphia's in Deptford, which I'm sure you've heard of. I don't know if you've been there.
Yeah.
But they
I don't
too
think I've been there,
have
but I'm
like,
sure Jen knows about it. But yeah.
Yeah, so that venue's kind of not. I don't want to say weird. That's not the word. They have like an old school disco light up dance floor. Oh, sorry. For like, their patrons, like their clientele to dance, and it's really cool. But when we would perform on stage, the artist was in front of us, but we had like a glass wall separating us. So It was like me and the other person I was dancing across. It was just me and him dancing back there. We had room to swap, but we were restricted with the glass wall in between us and the artist. So it's kind of like, she's performing up here and like this close, and we're like completely removed. We're dancing like 3 to 4 feet off of her shoulder, or sometimes we'll get a little closer at certain moments.
Yeah.
So that was kind of strange. Not a very big space, maybe 4 to 5 feet deep. Plenty of room sideways, but when I say 4 to 5 feet deep, I mean with that glass wall in front of us, that glass barrier. So it was like, all right, well, don't break that. So it really was like 3.5 to 4 feet. So, yeah, but that place is always packed out. So we always had a fun audience at that one for sure.
Nice.
Cool. Anything else on this subject? I feel like we didn't plan for this, but it was really fun to kind of get into like the certain variables of what can make a performance, not compromised or elevated, but I think that's
right,
close to what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, we normally don't talk about like the bad things that happen, but it's more of like, on the fact that everybody. I mean, everybody knows in these type of professions, you have your good nights, your bad nights, but it's cool that we can talk about the times where we had high expectations or just knew we were going into something's like, all right, I mean, we're just gonna kind of wing this thing, but it's cool to kind of talk about that, but
I
I
think
know we wanted to.
Sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna wrap up by saying, I know you said that you try to play to like your highest caliber, no matter the size of the audience.
Right.
I won't say that like if I'm performing for a small crowd that I'm not trying to put on a show, but when there's a lot of people, the adrenaline puts you on a whole other level.
Oh yeah.
So,
oh yeah.
I think when it's
absolutely.
when it's a smaller audience, you can think about like the mechanics of what you're doing, and you can try to think about coupling it with the performance. I think when you have a large audience, mechanics, they're not out the window, but they're definitely on the back burner, and you're really just thinking about like, okay, I'm putting on a show, like you know what I mean? So
oh yeah, the like you said, with adrenaline, being in front of a larger audience rather than being in a small, it's definitely harder as a small audience. You're performing for a smaller audience. It's harder to get into that groove. Absolutely. Versus if you're playing for a couple hundred people, then yeah, your adrenaline's going. You're just like, all right, let's just bang out, jam out. So yeah, it's definitely two different spectrums. But it's kind of hard to just be like, oh, well, I'm just gonna kind of wing it here and wing it there. But like you try to learn to be like, okay, well, sometimes in those instincts I'll play like songs that I really don't usually play, and I'll just think, well, I'm only playing for 5 people, so I mean, if this doesn't really go that great, not like you're playing in front of a couple hundred people where this might not work out. You can try things that you normally don't and be like, okay, well, because I played a couple songs this past week and I hadn't done in a while because I'm like, oh, well, I forget this little guitar lick. And I'm just like, it started coming back to me and I'm like, all right, well, let me just try this out because, I mean, F it, I'll just see what happens. And it actually worked out pretty well. And so
nice.
I tried out a couple things and, so I've been trying to get back into some songs that I haven't performed in a while to get them back in my memory so that I can continue to just play stuff that like, with everything that I play now and stuff that I played before. So now I can just be like, okay, well, now I have a bigger repertoire of stuff that I'm like not afraid to play because I haven't played it in a while.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, my backup gigs were few and far between. Like I know I can say, that I had done it for 13 years, but a lot of the times it was like 2 or 3 shows in the span of a month, and then because it was 4 of us, but 2 of the guys did the majority, and me and the one other guy were almost like the alternates coming in when one of them couldn't do it.
Yeah, right.
So it would be 6 months to a year later. Hey, are you able to do this show? And I'd be like, check my calendar and be like, yeah, I think so. But when are we going to rehearse? Especially if it's like, hey, we need you for like next weekend.
Right.
How long's the set list? I'd always ask that. And I think the artist and the manager were like, let's see if we can get the dancers and then we'll figure out the set list, because without any dancers, like she's not going to perform certain songs that she's like, this is a heavy dance track,
right?
If she doesn't have dancers behind her,
right? So that can kind of take the set list and modify it, because if you don't have the certain, like I said, if you don't have the dancers, you're not going to play a bigger dance tune that needs the dancers, so you'll cut that out, and that's going to, you know, modify the set list a little bit more. So yeah.
Sure. So then, I mean, they'd have the set list ready for us a couple days before we'd go to meet to rehearse.
Mm-hmm.
So that really was like, okay, here's the set list. And I'd be like, okay, I don't remember this track. So, and as time went on, it became, I was meeting with whoever the, you know, first string dancer was that was like in charge of learning me content.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if there were new tracks and I don't know the choreo yet, I'd be learning the stuff maybe 2 hours before the rehearsal with the artist, go into the studio and have to look like I totally know what I'm doing. Right.
Right.
Which you never want to say, oh yeah, I just learned all of this 3 hours ago. Like, cause you want to look like you prepared and you care. Right. So I'd always have to just be in the studio, and I got to the point where I started having more fun. And the studio, it's a very small recording like space.
Mm-hmm.
So it was fine because like we couldn't dance too full out, but there's a difference between like trying to think on the spot about what you're performing versus it being retained previously, and then you go in and your confidence level is like a little different. You almost have to put on you almost have to put on a front and try way harder if you just learned a bunch of stuff like 3 hours before. But yeah, I mean, the artists, at least, there were a couple times where at the end of the studio rehearsal, you know, she turned to me and say like, brush up on your stuff, really make sure that you know what you're doing when you get to the stage. I'd be like, yeah, no problem. Because in my head, I'm like, I just learned this. And even if we were meeting the night before the performance or 2 nights before, if it was the night before, I go home and drill it. And I wake up the next morning and drill it. I know you have, what's the word? Not a superstition, but you never practiced anything the day of a show, right? Or is that just what? Was that more so with the band, like the bands you played with?
Yeah, I mean, if we were having big things, we would have the typical like band practice every week, going over songs. If we had a show coming up, we would just run through the set list X amount of times, and if we wanted to tighten up certain things. But as far as the thing for me now, you know, depending if I'm going back to a venue that I've been playing at, normally I'm not practicing for it. It's just, I already know this venue. I know the songs that I play. I kind of know the crowd a little bit, so I know what works. But if I'm playing a new venue that is like, okay, I got to make sure that I'm up to par and clean up everything and, you know, fix, then I'll kind of, you know, 1 or 2 weeks out before it, I'll be like, all right, I got to brush this up, make sure my sound's all on point, make sure, you know, a lot of my, you know, things are a little bit more, you know, put together instead of just kind of winging a couple things. So it just depends. Like you said, it depends on the situation, depends on the gig. I'll prepare for them a little bit more because I don't get much time to practice regularly, but if it's more, I have to schedule it out. So it just depends on the gig, whether I'm doing a lot more pre-scheduled practices rather than just going into the gig being like, I know what I'm doing, play your set, there you go.
Sure. Brother, I think that we could probably rabbit hole this forever, but I know we have a couple things in mind that we want to talk about in a couple weeks, and we want to, shall we get into some football talk, since it's going to be It's heating up. It's getting pretty fun.
Yeah, let's quickly go over this wildcard weekend. I know we wanted to talk a little bit. We had some amazing games, and wildcard weekend is always fun to kind of start off the playoff season. We had, what was it, 6 awesome games, and I gotta say, each game was entertaining. The refereeing could have been maybe a little bit better in some of those games, but I feel every single game was entertaining. It was a great football all weekend.
Yeah, I mean, the Vikings. Oh my goodness, they just can't get to a Super Bowl again.
I mean, Kirk Cousins is just like, it was almost like how Tom Brady was in a way. Like, it's like, dude, like, either something's like you weren't in the right mindset, and I know I don't want to jump in between games, but even Tom Brady last night, and we're shooting this on a Tuesday, so we are just coming off of the Cowboys and Bucks game, but even last night, it seemed like Brady was just off, like he just wasn't in the right mindset. Because a lot of those things, he just wasn't hitting his targets, and a lot of his receivers, like Mike Evans, didn't start getting hot until that fourth quarter. So I'm like, he wasn't hitting his targets. I'm like, I'm not sure if he wasn't in the right mindset or just he wasn't the Brady that we're used. Because I was expecting, okay, Cowboys are up 18 points and they were crushing them 18-0. I'm like, slow your roll, because Tom Brady's used to coming back in the second half and just smothering people. But there were so many 3 and outs, and I'm like, there's something off with Brady. I mean, I'm not sure what's going on with him.
Maybe he needs to retire and actually stay there.
Okay, yeah. Hot take.
Yeah. I don't think it's that hot of a take. I think a lot of people agree with me on that.
I'll agree too. Yeah, I think he's definitely going to be doing some much needed thinking in the off season. I mean, I won't be surprised if he hangs it up. And it's the same thing with Aaron Rodgers. I think Aaron Rodgers is in the same boat too. I think he's definitely going to be thinking retirement too, because I think both of those guys are, great careers, but I think they're definitely at the point where I think they need to hang it up.
Well, I feel like they're the Undertaker trying to get that last great match, and it's like, dude, you're not right. Not that you're not great, not that you don't have all these accolades, but dude, know when it's time, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, that as much as Dallas is like our Eagles rival, I was just watching them blow through Tampa Bay, and I was like, oh my God, this is not good that they're getting that much momentum against the Bucks in Tampa Bay going into next week. I gotta say, if you're the Niners, which they beat the Seahawks 41-23, and
it's going to be a good game.
Scored, yeah, the thing is ending the half for the Niners Seahawks game. The Seahawks were up 17-16.
I was going to say they were up, so I was like, uh-oh.
Yeah. It was the Seahawks scored no points in the third quarter. Niners got 7, but then in the fourth quarter, Seattle only got 6 points, and the Niners got 18 points. So
they just kind of railed them in that quarter.
Yeah, absolutely. Ran train on them.
Ran train, yeah. But dude, that Jags game against the Baltimore Ravens, that was a game. And
so the Jags played the Chargers.
Yeah, that's right. The Chargers. The Baltimore Ravens played the Bengals. But yeah, the Chargers and the Jags. Like I think I caught that in the second quarter, and they were down. And I'm like, something's telling me the Jags aren't going away. They're going to start turning this game up, and they just started coming back, and that's when I started paying attention. I'm like, okay, all right. And then I'm like, all right, they're creeping in. Then they get a touchdown here, a touchdown there. They where the defense was keeping the Chargers off the field. I'm like, they might come back and win this. And when they had that last little run, I was like, wow, this was a game. And especially for Doug Peterson, hey, Doug Peterson's back in the playoffs with a unusual quarterback who's not really probably meant to be playing in the playoffs right now. So that's pretty 2007 or 2017-ish vibes going for Dougie P, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, you can't really speak bad about Trevor Lawrence because the kid is good.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I don't think that their team is just not cohesive like that. But that's even like a stretch to say because, I mean, you're down 17-0 at the end of the first quarter, and then you're down 27-0 in the middle of the second quarter, and then the Jags get a touchdown. So 27-7 going into the half.
Yeah.
The Chargers come back in the second half, get a field goal in the third quarter,
and I think that was it, right?
Nothing in the fourth quarter. And then the Jags ran train. 13 points 13 points third quarter, and then 11 points fourth quarter, and winning by 1 point, 31-30, Jacksonville. Like that
was a great game.
Yeah, I mean, the Bills game, they didn't play great. I don't know if they're like still in a rut over DeMar Hamlin, or if like the Dolphins are actually like a pretty scary team to play, because they can be.
Yeah, I think the Dolphins did have a decent year this year. I mean, like you said, I just don't think they were as consistent, because some week you'd be like, okay, they're making a long run for it, but then another week to be like, okay, well, they just had like a loss. Now they're on like a two week loss thing. So I don't think they were as consistent as they could have been, but they looked pretty good with, I think they just had the wide receiver from the Chiefs. They came, Tyreek Hill. So Tyreek Hill, first season with the Dolphins. So I thought they had a pretty decent year. It's just obviously they couldn't cut it. But I mean, the Bills. Right. The Bills, I think it's definitely going to be the Bills and the Bengals again coming up. I can definitely see that being another in the national championship for the NFC or the AFC. And
the Bengals and the Bills play this Sunday for the division championship.
That's right. Yeah. I don't have it right in front of me, so yeah.
Yeah, I have the cheat sheet pulled up right here. So it's for the AFC, it's the first seed Chiefs against the fourth seed Jaguars, and then it's the second seed Bills against the third seed Bengals. So you at least
rematch.
I mean, on the AFC side, you have your division like leaders going in like your top four teams are playing still. Yep. You look over at the NFC, and it's the first seed Eagles against the seventh seed Giants.
And I'm pretty surprised for our division. Like 3 out of the 4 teams are in the playoffs. I'm not sure when the last time that happened is, when we had almost our whole division, the NFC East division, in the playoffs. I mean, other than the Commanders. I mean, quickly say like I'm sure I understand because there's money involved, but you had the backup QB who was leading them into a lot more wins, but then they brought back Carson Wentz, and then they started going on that little spiel. But obviously, there's money behind Carson, so you have to play him if he's healthy. But they were starting to win a lot more when Carson wasn't there. But and I thought all 4 of them were going to go to the playoffs, but I got to give it up to our division this year with how great our division looks. I mean, the Giants are looking really good. I'm going to say is I don't think the Eagles are going to have a easy game going into this weekend with the Giants. It's definitely going to be a fight, but I think the Eagles will pull it off, but it's not going to be an easy win.
So cheat sheet, Googled real quick. It's been so this is the first time it's been right. 16 years since the NFC East had 3 teams in, and actually it was the same thing. Philadelphia won the division, and Dallas and New York both took the wild card spots.
Wow.
So, pretty awesome.
I think there was a stat that I looked up last week too that when Dallas and Philly met in the playoffs, I think Dallas is beating us 3-1 in the playoffs. Okay. So that's a stat. I don't think Dallas is going to beat the 49ers. I think the 49ers will beat Dallas because the 49ers are a monster team. But and I think our game's, like I said, our game's not going to be easy too because, Saquon Barkley is a beast of a running back, and they have some pretty decent receivers on their team. So, but, our team is just as stacked. We got a lot of Pro Bowlers on our team, but it's going to be a fight. But I think we will be victorious in that, and we're probably going to meet the 49ers in the championship before the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, like I was saying earlier, like Dallas having the momentum coming off of the Bucs, I think they absolutely required it to feel like they have even a shot, because the Niners, like I was saying, they just ran train on the Seahawks in that second half. Yeah. And they're in San Francisco, so home field advantage. The Niners turned red hot since Brock Purdy came in. I think we both have Eagles playing the Niners for the NFC Conference Final, and that's going to be a very interesting game.
It'll definitely be a very hard fought game to hopefully get us into the Super Bowl if we're trying. I mean, obviously that's our end goal, is to get into the Super Bowl, but obviously, right. I mean, it helps us that that game will, if we do see the 49ers in the conference final, at least it'll be in Philly, so we have an advantage for that.
Yeah, well, I think the biggest thing is we have to see if the Eagles getting the bye week will benefit them or if it's going to be their downfall, right? Because
that too. Because when they came off of a bye week, they barely, just got their win. I think it was they beat the Texans, or was it they lost to the Commanders after their bye week? I forget. It was one of those weeks. So yeah, I mean, but I think,
you mean in a regular season?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, losing to the Commanders, I'm just like, come on, man, you should have gotten that one.
Yeah. I mean, I think they could have easily had a 16 winning season, because I think 2 of those games were easy wins. It's just obviously the things didn't go our way for those 2 games. But yeah, I would like to think in this bye week that you're having, you're going to be in a different mindset. You're thinking, obviously, one game at a time, but you're thinking playoff season, one and done. So a lot more mental state is going into this bye week rather than just a regular season bye week. So
sure, we gotta see how Jalen Hurts is going to hold up, because he was out for those couple weeks with his weak shoulder or whatever it was.
Right. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Hopefully he's well rested.
Yeah, I think you'll definitely see a different Jalen Hurts in this one, because obviously he was definitely playing very what's the word? Very minimal. That's not the word, but that's the only thing I think of right now. He wasn't playing his full out game. Like, he did not run that much. He wasn't he was pretty much playing the passing and running game. He didn't do too much running, which I was okay with. Get this win, get to the playoffs, get your rest, and be ready for that first game, and then put on your put on the gas and hey, if you get hurt in the playoffs, it's better than getting hurt the last game of the season trying to get into a playoff game. So
right,
I think we're definitely going to see hopefully a healthy Jalen Hurts, but I think you're definitely going to see the traditional Jalen Hurts running out of the pocket, doing his passing, running game, and everything. So I think we'll definitely see hopefully a different Jalen Hurts in this game.
Yeah, I mean it feels good to know that the last game that we played was against the Giants. So
right. Mm-hmm.
The Giants came to the link. So I feel like that mentality is going to be fresh.
Yeah.
I'm sure the Giants are going to be like, okay, well, where did the Eagles fuck up the last time we played them, and try to get around those obstacles?
Exactly.
But I think the Eagles are going to play a lot different. So
yeah,
you can think what you want, but I think we go on to face the Niners. If Dallas somehow topples the Niners, and Dallas comes to the link, the play. I think the city's going to erupt. Honestly.
Yeah.
Oof.
So I guess let's make some before we get out of here. Let's make our predictions for the 4 games going this weekend. So I'll go first for the
sure.
Fed. So I'll say I'm gonna go Philly wins between the Giants. I'm gonna go 49ers beating the Dallas.
Okay.
I'm gonna go the Chiefs beating the Jags, which it'll be awesome if that becomes a game, but I'm gonna stick with where the money usually is. That the Chiefs will pull out a win. That Bengals and Bills game is gonna be a banger.
Yeah.
I want to say
that's
Bills.
The one I'm looking forward to.
Yeah. I want to say Bills because of the whole thing with Hamlin right now.
Damar.
But I mean, Joe Burrow and the Bengals. I don't think. I mean, I could be wrong. I don't think they've been playing their full potential. But this game might be the one that gets them fired up. So I think it's going to be a good game. But I think I'm just going to have to go with the Bills for that one.
Yeah, I mean, that one is the hardest game.
Yeah.
To predict. Just the mental psyche of the Damar Hamlin. Situation happened when the Bills were playing the Bengals. Now, the Bills were at least in Cincinnati, right? The Cincinnati Bengals are going to Buffalo.
I was just going to ask you, are they playing in Cincinnati or are they playing in Buffalo? If they're playing in Buffalo, then I think that almost makes my choice that much even more that the Bills are going to play, because that crowd's going to be off the chain.
Yeah, Bengals are going to have all of that energy to compete against, not just the talent on the field, but how loud that place is going to be. It's going to be crazy. I gotta say, with the Chiefs, I'm the only one that I am the one I should say, the one that I'm the most uncertain about is that Bengals Bills game.
Mm-hmm.
Just because the Bills, according to our buddy Bill Burr, they did not play top tier against the Dolphins. So I just hope
that's the only thing that has me worried.
I hope the Bengals don't come in and absolutely destroy them, because I mean, man, Buffalo is a pretty depressed place, but it will be the most depressed city in the country at that point.
Yeah. Like I said, I would want to say go with the Bills because of all the things going with them, but the Bengals are coming off of a mad game, because you would think with them being the Dolphins, it would have been more of a farther expand score. But
Yeah.
I don't know. It's week to week. Every week with football is different. So like you said, the Bengals could come out in this game and be that much more prepared and be coming out firing, and it could be that much more of a game, which, I think all four of these games are going to be great. Everybody's playing at their best football, so it's going to be another good weekend.
I think the biggest upset would be if the Jaguars can topple the Chiefs. That would obviously be like, because here's the thing: the Chiefs are the AFC number 1 seed. The Jags are the number 4 seed, but the Jags are coming off of the division as the division champs at 9-8, and after them was Tennessee Titans at 7-10. Like,
yep.
They basically just strolled right into the playoffs, no problem, right?
They were definitely one of the teams that just strolled right into the playoffs. Like, okay, we're not supposed to I know I'm not supposed to be here, but I'm just going to fit right in.
Yes, that. Bills Bengals, I think, is going to be the tightest one.
That will be
the hardest.
That will be the game of the week.
Yeah, for sure.
Or expecting to be the game of the week.
I'm loving that we're down to just 4 games because, dude, having the 6 games between you had the 2 games on Saturday, the 3 games on Sunday, and the 1 game Monday night. I'm like, all right, let's dial it back here.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and like you said, every week starts getting like smaller and smaller. So then, this will be 4, then the next week's gonna be 2, and then we take the week off. Then we got Super Bowl week. So
yeah,
we got a lot of stuff. And like you said, next week we have our watch along coming, and we have the watch along poll that's still open. When this comes out, you'll have until Monday the 23rd to vote. So you guys can vote on that poll, and that's going to close up on Monday the 23rd at midnight. And we'll be doing a watch long of a Royal Rumble match. We picked 4 different years. So if you guys want, go to our Facebook page and scroll down, go to the poll, and vote on which one you want me and Jim to watch, and that will be filmed for next week's episode. So we're looking forward to that. We have a lot of sports talk coming in these next couple weeks. We have, the Royal Rumble, we have Super Bowl week coming, so there's a lot of stuff that's going to be coming our way for you guys.
And the current leaders is still, like, by a long shot, is the 2001 Rumble.
Yes. A lot of people were voting for that one. So, yeah, that's in a really head of a lead for that one. It's the 2001 Royal Rumble.
So if you want us to see, Ant, do you remember the other 3 off the top of your head? I thought 2010 and 2020 were both in there.
I think it was, 2001, 2003, 2015, and 2020.
Okay, sure. Yeah, if you want us to watch either of those 3 over the 01 Rumble, just go vote on our Facebook page poll.
Yeah.
Anth, we good to get out of here? I know we got off to like a little bit of a shaky start, just figuring out when to jump in because we completely talked about topic that we weren't planning to, which is fine.
And we just kind of, just talked, and that was fun. And then we got to talk a little football. So, man, this was fun. And, we'll definitely gain a little bit more, and we'll talk a little bit more. Because like I said, I want to pick your brain a little bit more on the music and dance front, and we'll get another episode on that too. And if you guys like the music and dance talk, let us know in the comments. If you like the music and dance talk, we'll do more. We'll think of more things with that too. I know we were just coming off of a music dance topic as well. So if you guys like that, let us know so we know what type of content to keep on pulling out for you guys. Other than that, this has been the One Set Podcast. My name is Anthony Irvin. I'm here with my buddy Jim Green. If you guys are here for the first time, thank you guys for being here. If you are seeing this for the first time or have been coming back, make sure you're hitting that subscribe button on YouTube, or if you're watching on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever, hit subscribe, like, follow, share us with a friend. Let them know we're here every Friday with new episodes. And thank you all for being here with us. But if you have anything else to say,
I think just got to leave this one with Go Birds. Let's go Eagles.
Birds.
All right.
Absolutely.
Thank you all.